What is happening in today's real estate market? What should you expect as a buyer or seller? Listen to this episode to get an update.
The Den, powered by the Lions Group, a show dedicated to exploring hot topics in real estate, local happenings, and industry trends. We're a small team of professionals approaching $400 million in sales and nearly 2,000 local transactions. You're listening to time-tested experts and industry leaders. Here's a refreshing look at real estate happenings and more. Welcome to The Den.
Hello and welcome to this episode of The Den. And today we're going to be giving a market update. What's the state of the market today? Now, we have a lot to discuss, but before I get to that, let me introduce my friends, my partners, my co-hosts, the fellow members of the Lions Group. To my left, Paul handing me the Rockberry, Aspen, the Ninja Gruen, and the boss, Shannon Martin Martinez. And my name is Ben Lyons. I'm your host today, and we are going to roll our sleeves up on the state of the market and talk about whether we flip from seller market to buyer market, what's going on with interest rates, how's the inventory looking, just some general thoughts about what to expect, whether you're buying or selling a property, and what to anticipate if you're in the market. So, Paul, you've got your little laptop pulled up here.
Cheat sheet. Let's
jump right into a few stats, and that'll kick us off with some talking points. So, inventory, we're sitting high, low, neutral. Where are we at with inventory?
For inventory?
Inventory. For our viewers to know, we have this thing called an absorption rate. Does anyone want to talk about an absorption rate? But basically what happens is with an absorption rate is if you are selling on average a certain amount of homes and you were to stop inventory. So let's just use an example. Let's say we have 100 homes on the market, okay? And on average, we sell 25 homes a month. In that instance, in 4 months, we would have burned through all of our inventory. And an absorption rate gives us kind of a bearing of whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. And I believe the threshold is 5 months before it tips to a buyer's market. But Paul or Aspen, you can probably correct me on that. I believe we are still well under a 5-month mark with our absorption rate. Paul, do you want to talk to that a little bit?
Inventory has been trending up. Okay, so the low is right about 2022.
Okay.
We've come up we've doubled inventory over the last 2 years.
Okay.
Nationwide.
Yeah.
Here, over the last year, we've gone up about
40% or so.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Not too much.
Yeah.
The other one that I was prepared for was the sold prices.
So, but hold on before you get to sold prices. So the inventory has actually doubled since 2022 across the nation, which is pretty critical. I mean, you're getting twice the inventory to choose from if you're a buyer.
Yeah, so I mean,
twice the competition if you're a seller.
And one of the big pushes that the legislative had was that housing shortage. So there's been a big push nationwide and in the state of New Mexico for housing. So construction has gone up. I saw a stat. I'll lie if I started saying numbers, but construction has really picked up over the last year and a half.
So we're seeing more inventory at the market, but does that translate, Aspen, into a buyer's market?
No, I don't think it's a buyer's market here yet. Might be in some areas, but that's not my business. Yeah. So I can tell you in Durango from 2023 to 2024, just looking at July, it's down 50%. So let's say that there's new.
So your inventory is down 50%.
It's down.
Wow.
But it's because things are selling really, really quickly. So new listings this in July was 11 and sold was 13. So it's just like we're still not keeping up with it, at least in that market. And I think we can say that here too. We don't have the inventory we need yet to even tip it to a neutral market, let alone a buyer's market.
I think one of the things in Durango, because the prices are so high, I think the biggest thing you see is the interest rate right now. Mm-hmm. Those people, when they're financing $1 million or $2 million house, why would they move at a time where they're going to double or triple their interest rate?
People are holding on to their houses.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I think those bigger markets, that's really in play is what I think.
But in all fairness, if you're not competing with 50 other people because you're buying during a time that the interest rates are a little bit higher, that really tamps down the demand, which is almost better for you. And then you can refinance.
Well, people have to choose. You're either, when they say, I need to buy and sell right now, and I want to, sell high and buy low. Well, you're not in the same market.
Yeah.
Then you're going to need to do one now and wait a while.
Yes. Yep. So what's the average sold price in Durango, Aspen?
For Durango in town, the average sales price is $1,064,000. And it's a little bit less when you get to the rural area. It's $974,000.
Wow. So
A little less.
a little less. So you're hovering right about $1 million.
Durango
for the
Mountain,
average
though,
price.
you're averaging about $308,000.
Okay.
But that's for
Condo,
Yeah.
second home type of thing. Okay. Paul, in San Juan County, what's our average sold price?
$285,000.
200. So just under 300,000.
How reasonable it is to live here. This is why people move here from all over the country.
Yeah, still very reasonable, because what's the average sold price in America right now?
$495,000.
Almost $500,000 for the average sold price in America, which is pretty shocking. Let me just say this. The dollar isn't worth what the dollar was just even a few years ago. So it's even hard for us in this profession when we see those numbers like, oh my gosh. But when you fast forward 10 years, you'll look back and go, oh, that was only $500,000.
Yeah.
Right. It just doesn't translate in our brains right now, but that's the reality of it.
Well, we hear all the time that this is an overinflated market here in San Juan County. We're like, we are well below the national average.
Absolutely.
If we wanted to catch up, then, to get to normal, to get to the baseline for the country.
Our income is less than the national average, though, too.
Well,
Yep. I can see that.
good point.
That's a great point. Yeah. Well, and you have,
It goes hand in hand.
It does. It does. And then the other thing is too, like, especially in Durango, where you have a lot more, tourism. What kind of buyers are typically there, Aspen? I mean, in the sense of, are they buying second homes or primary residences?
It kind of just depends. Mainly second homes, vacation rentals, but you do have the people that are selling and moving, but some people that can afford to do it, like it's not their first home that they're buying.
Yeah.
So I was even thinking, wow, if I had a property that I bought even 4 or 5 years ago for $400,000, because the average just a few years ago was $780,000. So let's say I got it even before then, and I could sell it for over $1 million now and just move to Aztec 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
Right.
I might do it.
out.
Yeah. It's so I can see why people are holding on to it if they want to stay in the mountains and they want to stay in Durango or Pagosa Springs or Bayfield. But I'm like, it's so close.
Yeah.
It's right there. But
Yep. Just cross the state line in a few minutes. And the other thing is I always think about like, when I go, Durango can't get any higher.
oh, it just keeps going.
But then you look at Telluride, which probably the average sales price there is $2 million. You go, oh yes, it can get higher. It can absolutely get higher for the average. And it really just comes down to demand. I mean, have you all been to Jackson Hole, Wyoming? It's gorgeous, beautiful area, just south of the Teton Mountains. And you gotta drive north, and you got the Tetons to the left, and then you're right into Yellowstone. Great skiing, summer activities, all these wonderful things. I can see why it's a destination spot. I can see why, bare land is $1 million in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So you have some of these outliers, some of these areas where the numbers shoot through the roof, but the average of $500,000 for a home in America is pretty mind-boggling.
It really is. And I think we're pretty reasonably priced here in San Juan County. I do think it's high for the income that we have here, but reasonable compared to the rest of the country. You can still afford it. A first-time home buyer can still make it work here. And I owned a business in Telluride, and we qualified for affordable housing. This was, 7-8 years ago. And since we owned a business there, and it was starting at $500,000 for like a studio apartment. And I was like, in what world? It's really hard to put hand in hand the house prices. People have to live in these places and work there. You have to have people doing the day-to-day jobs to keep your town running. Mm-hmm. But when locals can't afford it anymore and they're getting priced out and having to travel an hour plus through the mountains just to go do these service jobs, that's where I kind of have kind of a rub with it.
Yeah.
I see the need for affordable housing, but I also see not putting regulations on private homeowners. It's a really kind of hard line to decide what's best.
Yeah. One of my former clients was a Secret Service agent, and he was talking about being transferred to different areas. And he goes, I have friends that transferred to San Francisco and immediately go on welfare or some type of affordable, like assisted housing. And I'm like, as a Secret Service agent? He's like, yeah, they just can't afford anything in town, and they work there. They have to commute. Otherwise they're commuting an hour or so to get into that. But Paul, you were going to say something or parlay on what Aspen was mentioning. Did it fall out of
I don't know what happened. But to speak to what you're talking about in government jobs, different areas of the country have different cost of living adjustment stipends.
Yeah.
So like if you go to, say, San Francisco, you get a large chunk. And the one thing about those cost of living, we call them COLA, they're never enough. Like you have to live in poverty if you just live on that. Or that's why most people in the military or in the government live on base or in some sort of housing like that. What I was going to say about what Aspen was talking about, in the legislation, they will do like one or the other. Either you have to have all affordable housing or no affordable housing. Like they were trying to do a bill not that long ago that says no more single family homes. All has to be multifamily. All has to be, considered affordable housing. So it's hard when you talk about, the people that are doing all the service jobs. Like I grew up outside of Boston. We call them all bedroom communities because everybody lived in the affordable areas and had to commute to the city to work. And in places like, some of these resorts, it's so rural, you don't have that.
Yeah. So
I don't know what the solution is,
or
but
it's like dorm housing where you're all in bunk beds on the resort, which is also crazy.
In the oil field, we call them man camps, where they just put everybody in one big tent or one big, encampment. And nobody wants to do that either. You can't bring your family there.
Yeah. And I can see the disconnect with the legislators, right? So they're trying to do a one size fits all type of solution, and that just doesn't work because you have to have some form of a hybrid. And there's a big disconnect there. So that can change things dramatically if stuff like that gets passed, right? Yep. Where it's all affordable housing. Well, Telluride's not meant for affordable housing. It's just not the condition that it should be under because of the nature of where it's at and how it's located.
Well, that's the thing. The people that are making the laws are in Denver, and it works in Denver.
Yeah.
And Telluride is on the opposite side of the state.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
Yeah.
And same thing here. The laws being made in Santa Fe and Albuquerque. It doesn't work in Farmington.
Doesn't always work, for sure. Yep. So kind of back to the state of the market component. There is a disconnect right now. I feel this, and maybe you all can parlay on what I'm about to say, but there is a disconnect because sellers are really trying to hold on to the last couple of years, right? And buyers they're a little tentative right now because the interest rates have gone higher, and they're feeling the cool down in the market. So there is that disconnect. So if you're a buyer or a seller, what should you be thinking about right now? Shannon, I'm going to jump to you on that one.
I have no idea.
You have no.
It's a mystery to us all.
It's a mystery, isn't it? We're brutally honest here at the Den. If we don't know, we just say we don't know.
No, I think that is happening, and I think that everybody needs just to be informed. We need to do a better job of informing our buyers and sellers of where things are, and when they come into the market, make sellers understand a little bit more that they may have to start giving a little bit, which they haven't had to do in a couple of years, and allow buyers to realize that, you might have to also, work a little harder for things. So I think there's a little bit of learning that can be done on both sides. It starts with us. It starts with us informing them. People watch the news or they knew someone that sold or bought a house a year or so ago. And that in their mind, that's the baseline for what the market is, and it's up to, the market breathes, it changes, it revolves, it moves, it's always different. And you take a snapshot of where you're at the time that you buy or sell a house.
Yeah.
Not at the best time that you remember.
Yeah. So let's move into that a little bit. Paul or Aspen, jump in on this election coming up. are you feeling kind of a pullback from activity or movement? Or people kind of just waiting to see what's happening? What are your thoughts there? Because we're 60 days? Are we 60 days out? Yeah, we're about 60 days out.
Oh, I've turned it off.
Yeah, it's not good for the heart, is it? Or your emotional well-being.
No matter what side you're on.
Yeah, it's a rough ride.
Ugly right now.
It's a rough ride. But what do you see in the sense of the market as a whole right before election time? I mean, we've seen these cycles over the years.
People always expect rates to drop right around election time. But I also think, we're still looking from last year, 2 years before, whenever we list our house, we're going to get 30, 50,000, 100,000 over asking, and it's going to sell, and there's going to be no contingencies. And I think you really touched on it with the last one. You have clients that bought 3 years ago. They're making money. I don't care what amount of money it is. They're making money on their house that they've only owned for 3 years. Mm-hmm. That's incredible. Mm-hmm. That is not normal. And I think we have kind of gotten away from normal. So I think even with the election, I don't know about you guys, but I see activity picking up right now, which I feel like normally with an election, people would be pulling back and kind of waiting to see. But I think we're just in such a weird time right now that people are kind of like, normal's out the window, and we're just doing what makes sense for our family right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's something that I would equate to, every presidential election year, this is what happens. The market does this. I don't think this year is anything normal. I think what is happening, though, is the economy is... Well, depending on who you ask, the economy is either great or it's horrible. But I think people are seeing that things are costing more. And sticker shock is what I'm seeing. A lot of buyers going, how much does this cost? So the seller that's selling it had a $750 mortgage. The new buyer is going to have a $2,000 mortgage because of these interest rates. So that's what I'm seeing. Is, buyers hesitant to get into something like that. And all the mortgage lenders are saying, well, we can refinance in 2 years. Like, well, you have to bank on that. You have to make it that far. Sure. If you can't budget for it, now's not the time to be buying at these interest rates. And everybody that says historically the interest rate is about 7.7, I'm here to debunk that, because there was like one big blip in the market in the 70s. We're went up to almost 30%. And that is what's keeping it higher. So the average is really in the high 4s, low 5s. If you take that couple of years out when it was really, really high.
Yeah. You remove the anomaly there.
And if you account for income increasing, it is not.
No.
It's not even on the same track for.
No, not even.
Yeah. And Aspen, that to your point, that's great insight, because you have this appreciation that's funneling, right? It's almost exponential the last couple of years that we've seen appreciation growth, but wages have not tracked on the same path. And so then therein lies the disconnect between what buyers want, but now they can't afford. It's the same house as it was 3 years ago. It's just now with their income not scaling on the same level as inflation.
And not just the house increasing, your interest the interest is really high right now. Your insurance is going to be high. Your groceries are high. Your gas is high. Your electric's going to be everything with this house is going to be higher. So it's not just the mortgage price that's higher. Mm-hmm. It's everything. It's kind of disheartening for people, because I really do think that, real estate has absolutely changed my life, and I'm sure you all can agree with this. And I was able to get in late, but I still could find a good deal. It's now, I think so many people are investors, and it's much, much more common than it used to be. If there's a good deal, an investor's buying it, and the first-time home buyers has a pretty rough time right now.
Yeah.
I think we can say, talk about the market all day long and how it is a seller's market and it's going up. But I think having empathy for the people that are not going to have the same American dream that we all had. Yeah. It's kind of disheartening, but I don't know what it is, but I do know here in San Juan County, you can still get an affordable house. And I'd love to see that. And people are still it's kind of a win-win-win situation here right now. Mm-hmm. You can buy in a house below the national average. Mm-hmm. People are still making good money on the houses that they bought, and the interest rates have dipped a little bit. So I think it really is kind of a breath for people buying right now in San Juan County.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of interest rates, where are we hovering at right now?
I think low 6. talked about kind of a low 6.
So the 30-year fixed is at a 6.3. This is according to mortgagelenderscomparison.com.
Yeah.
6.3 for a 30-year fixed, 5.2 for a 15-year.
Wow.
That's good.
So in the low 5s for a 15-year AM, which is pretty incredible. Wow. I need to look at that for my next purchase.
Right.
I think the investment ones are still in the 7s.
Yeah.
So don't get too excited.
That's right. Dang it. That's right.
Yeah, these are this
Now we breached 7%.
by a lot. We almost hit
8%. Yeah. So the fact that they've cooled down and come back, now I got to say this, we have been addicted to low interest rates, and that isn't always healthy either.
No.
Right? Because then you have no throttle in the economy. If your interest rates are just always so low, you have no ability to back the accelerator off and adjust for things, COVID being.
I know, I've said it. I'm not selling my house because the interest rate I got on it, there's no way.
Yeah.
And I think you have a lot of people in that situation where they're not going to sell their house. It makes more sense for them to rent it because the interest rate is lower than what the depreciation value is. So it's literally free money.
Yes.
It's unless they have to sell it to buy their next house, I think most people are going to rent the houses that they bought during COVID.
So we're seeing a lot of that right now. So sellers in this market are still holding on to those interest rates, but they're also holding on to yesterday's values and expectations. So the state of the market today is that sellers need to be a little bit more reasonable with their asking prices, not maybe hold out as much. Look at the competition. What are you competing against with in the market today? And how do you price appropriately for that? And buyers, on the other hand, don't be too gun shy. There is a pullback from buyers because of the interest rates, but at the same time, you're not competing with thousands of other buyers because the interest rates aren't, silly low. If it can work in your budget, then try to make it work, because the best time to buy a property was 20 years ago. Second best time was today. So Paul, you want to add to that?
Well, I think something that buyers and sellers have to understand is that this market is, like Shannon said, is moving quickly. So when we look at comps 3 months ago, that was a different market. And when we have people looking at, well, this house over here in another area of town got this price, I should be able to get it over here. Even within town, I mean, I call it micro markets, but you have this little neighborhood that gets this value. The same house in another neighborhood gets a completely different value. So what we're having to do is actually show them the facts now. Mm-hmm. Our opinions are, because it's moving so fast. So we're like, no, my guy just sold down the street 2 months ago. Go, yeah, it's a different market. I go, no.
Whenever I've been doing CMAs, I'm like, this is for this month.
Yeah.
After that, we're going to have to do it.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like home inspectors. They go out and they say, this inspection is for today.
Yeah.
It's not for, a week from now. It's for today. So understood. Well, let's jump into the speed round and wrap up the conversation a bit. So Aspen, I'm going to kick off with you. Biggest factor to consider in the next few months, if you're a buyer or seller, what's the biggest thing you should be thinking about?
I think what you are needing to do for your own personal family and self. I think we can really focus on elections, and we can try and predict what's going to happen, but it's a moving, breathing market, especially right now. If it makes sense for you and you can afford it and not afford it in 2 years when you refinance, comfortably afford it right now, then home ownership is one of the fastest ways to grow your generational wealth and security. So I think if you're a seller, maybe, I don't want to say don't be so greedy, but be
realistic.
Be realistic.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like if you are making money on your house, and especially if you've only owned it a few years, that is fantastic. And that is a win in real estate. This is a long-term game here. So I think if you can get into it and you can afford it as a buyer, then like you said, today's the best time.
Great points. Wonderful points. Paul, can you add to that?
In the next few months?
Yeah, biggest factor to consider. State of the market right now.
Well, the market, it's a complex market right now. If you're in this area, like we've been saying, the houses are below the national average, so this is a good place to invest. But I would say, just to echo what Aspen said, whatever your financial situation is, because depending on which way the election goes would affect pricing. Prices are, could stay high, or they could, depending on who gets in there. I think just depending on where you're at, I think you said it pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. Do what's right for you.
Yeah.
In your personal situation, because we don't know. It's a flip of a coin, right?
Yeah. And all these so-called experts that are all over the place saying you should buy this and do that. Don't listen to Dave Ramsey if it doesn't work for your situation.
Yeah. Yep. Shannon, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Aspen. I think that these days the market is going to keep changing. It's going to change in your favor and against you and back in your favor and a dozen times. I think if it's the right move for you at the time, it's the best thing for your family or for your finances, then you do it. And I think the way to do that is just sit down, be honest with your realtor, talk to them about what your goals are, where you're at, what you need, what you require, and make a good decision on it. And it's going to be a good decision. It's not one size fits all. It's going to be individual.
I love that. I think that was a great point, Aspen. I really do. You've got to do what's best for you, right? So the state of the market is one thing. We know that it's still somewhat of a seller's market. There's some things that are going to happen with the election. We don't know where that's going to land, and that's okay. But if the timing's right for you now to buy a property. If it's time to sell a property and move on, open a new chapter in your life, do it. You need to be able to move in cohesiveness with your personal strategy in your life and the strategy for you or your family or whatever it is. Don't let some of these outliers influence you overly too much, right? We don't want this to put all of our chips in one way or the other. And the thought of this is definitely a sign we shouldn't sell right now, with everything else in your life telling you to sell. So be open-minded about it. Do what's best for you and your family in this strategy. And that's a great discussion on the state of the market. So let's jump into my favorite part of the podcast, which is the Lion's Pride. So we like to highlight an individual, an event, an organization that goes out into this community and does some great things. And as Lions Group members, we do great things in this community, and we like to highlight those that do the same. So Shannon, you're up today. Who would you like to bring to the Lions Pride?
So I have a lovely lady that I really like, and I want to talk about her a little bit. Miss Flora Sandoval. And she is a former realtor. She hasn't sold in quite a while, but you will see her working all the time and serving her community. You will see her mostly at Sam's Club with her big basket full of groceries. This woman tirelessly serves her community. She volunteers her time and gathers up anybody that she can around her to help her. And she typically serves within her church. She cooks for families. Usually anytime there's a gathering, an event, a funeral service, if you live in Bloomfield, the chances are that Flora has worked very hard, and she will put in a whole day preparing, cooking, serving, cleaning, shopping, and she doesn't earn a penny for it. She just gives back to her community. I know that she's been doing this all the years I've known her, which has been a lot. And I don't know that she's ever said no to anybody. I don't know that she has. She just serves her community that she loves every opportunity she gets. And she is probably cooking every week for some family.
She's probably cooking right now.
I love it. Yes. Yes. And she works so hard.
Yes.
She works so hard, and she takes such good care of people. And, she just, I don't think anybody really even realizes that how much she does for her community.
What a great choice. Flora Sandoval.
She's a wonderful lady.
Longtime realtor.
Yeah.
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 Thank you for that. And Flora, if you're listening to this, or if you hear this, or if you know Flora, go give her a hug and tell her thank you for.
She's probably tired.
She's probably tired. Yeah. Maybe cook a meal for her.
Right.
Because she's one that does this stuff and doesn't look for accolades, doesn't look for recognition. She just goes out and serves.
Knows how much she does.
Yeah. That's an incredible choice. Thank you, Shannon, for that. And Flora, if you're listening, thank you for all that you do in your community, in our community. And thank you for just quietly serving people constantly. So if you know Flora, or Flora is listening, go give her a hug and And Flora, thank you for all that you do. Welcome to the Lion's Pride. Great choice, Shannon. Thank you for that. So if you like our content, please like and subscribe our YouTube channel. We've got great content coming out all the time. Jump on our newsletter, like our Facebook page. We've got content that's coming out that will help give you an advantage in today's market. Schedule a consultation with any one of us here at the Lions Group. We'd love to sit down with you and talk about buying or selling and what the market looks like and how we can help achieve your strategy and your goals with you. And we would love to do that with you at any time. So please reach out. And thank you for listening to this episode of The Den.
Thank you for listening to The Den, powered by the Lions Group. Hit the subscribe button to keep informed on real estate happenings. If you'd like to learn more about the Lions Group, visit sjcbroker.com. Complex markets require complex strategies. The Lions Group can give you a true advantage in any market. Whether you're buying or selling, residential or commercial, contact us directly at sjcbroker.com. We're time-tested experts with a client-first approach, and we'll see you next time in The Den.